My name is Firdaus Farhana Haq Vijaya. At present, I'm working as an assistant professor at the Department of Urban and Regional Planning of Rajshahi University of Engineering and Technology. I was graduated from Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology from Urban Planning discipline in 2014. And later, I completed my master's in development studies from Antwerp University, Belgium. And after that, I started my career in academia and research sector. And that's it. I'm working as a teacher and as a researcher. And occasionally, I also work as a consultant in urban planning projects.
Okay.
Among all these projects, my favorite one was the BRT line project that starts from the Gazipur to the airport. But unfortunately, the problem is it just stops in the airport. It does not connect to the center of the city, and probably government in future will try to extend it from the airport to the center of the city. But the problem is when the BRT project was taken. There are few flyover projects, like there were 7 flyovers projects already completed in Dhaka city that happened already in the past. So after completion of those flyovers, government now have initiated the BRT project. So when they were implementing the BRT projects, they were seeing that the BRT project will not be fruitful as it ends right in front of the airport, where our most of the city is located. Far from the airport. So probably in future they will try to connect the BRT lines with the center of the city. So I'm looking forward to it because it emphasizes the development of our public transportation sectors. Um, I'm quite hopeful about this project, although I'm not sure how they're gonna implement it because there is a huge uh, collision between the flyovers and the current BRT plan. And another project that we always talk about, it also focuses on the public transportation, that is the MRT line. Although the construction of MRT line is on above the ground, that's why nowadays, if you travel to the Dhaka city, you will find every city is covered by the pillars of the MRT lines, which almost destroy the aesthetics of our city. Especially there are a few avenues of our city we are very fond of, like the Manikmia Avenue or the avenue in front of the Chandrima Uddan. Those are also, covered by the pillars of the MRT lines. So although it destroys the aesthetics a little bit, but still there are few possibilities that it will encourage people to use public transportation. It also has few possibilities to improve the transportation sector. If we pick the BRT line, if it ever happens from Gazipur to the center of the city, uh, definitely it will be a good development for the city, especially if you also know that our Dhaka city has, of course, public buses, and mostly 28% trips are conducted by the public buses, 64% are conducted by walking and rickshaw, and only less than 10% are, conducted by the cars and everything. So this 28%, actually our trips, we can actually generate our trips almost 60 to 70% by the buses if we have, efficient bus system. But our bus system is operated by almost 60 companies, 60 different companies. But if you consider different good examples from around the world, probably bus sector is operated either by the government or maybe 5 to 6 companies operate the bus, so that the coordination among the bus and the routes are very good in different cities around the world who have uh, presented a good example in implementing public transportation system. So in that case, coming back to the BRT project, BRT project aims to efficiently moving the buses in double lanes, where you will be using only the bus system, and bus will be operated by only 5 to 6 companies or by the government, and they will design the route in a proper manner. So I think at least the public people Especially in Dhaka city, we almost 90% people actually are from poor to the upper middle class range. Only 3% people are rich, and rest of the people are mostly poor or the middle or upper middle class people. So these people will have the opportunity to move efficiently from one point to the another point of the city, which we do not find at the current stage of our life, right? We see all the flyovers and everything that are designed for the cars. Who has the car? Only 3% people have the car for them. 3% is the rich people. Maybe you can say 15 to 20% people have car by their own. So these people are using the facility, but the rest of the people, like the poor people or extreme poor people or the middle class people, they struggle a lot to reach to their destination. So if the projects like BRT or another project like MRT, if it efficiently runs, probably they will give the opportunity to those people who are not benefited currently from any other projects. I have only mentioned 3 projects, right? And most of the projects are focusing on the construction of the infrastructures and especially the BRT, MRT, or expressways. These carries the commuters who live in one part of the city and come to the center of the city for their work or other purposes. But when they get off to their destination, and how actually he reaches to his office or shopping area or school after getting off from the BRT or the MRT, that is a big question. And at that point of time, the integration of the mode or integration of transportation happens. Like if I take a BRT route, I take the I take probably a rickshaw, then I get into the bus, and then the BRT, using the BRT, I get off to the destination point. Then again, I take a walk or maybe a rickshaw. So that is the total integration scenario of a transportation model. But at present, the development, whatever is going on, that actually thinking about the center of the model. But what about the initial part of the model and the rest part of the model? They are not thinking about it, but that are really crucial, because your complete efficiency and complete comfort of using that transport mode will depend on the first and the last part of the model. So I think the ultimate development will not, be that much of efficient if we cannot, consider these 2 aspects. So in that case, as I mentioned, that almost 64% trips are generated by rickshaw and by walking. So in that case, how we are facilitating these people, as these people probably may use BRT or MRT lines, but still they will be, using their walking mode or the rickshaw mode. They will be using. But right now, we do not see much of the projects on these cases, especially if we consider the walkability of the Dhaka city or the sidewalk condition of the Dhaka city. It actually has degraded than before. And no new projects have been taken to improve the pedestrian conditions of the Dhaka city. We do not find any pedestrian precincts. We cannot refer any good places where we can take a walk. In fact, our sidewalks are not even properly connected that will, encourage people to walk on the streets. And due to this, we are also, the health issues of the people are also, getting involved with all these aspects. So this is one case. I mean, the development, whatever is going on, it's not inclusive according to me, because especially in the last 15 years, almost 7 flyovers have been constructed, and that's completely exclusive project. I mean, it excludes the people who are from low economic strata. It excludes the bus users, the rickshaw users, and the people who walk on the road. They exclude everyone. And if we consider these development projects, as I could not mention any other projects like any type of public space project or any type of probably riverside development project or any type of park improvement project. I could not mention it strongly. These are few projects that actually include different peoples from different economic class and gender. But the projects that right now Dhaka is focusing, definitely it's not exclusive, it's just focus one sector of the society and just one aspect of the development of a country. Yeah, I get your point. Let's start from one point. For example, the projects are going on, the massive projects, the MRT and the expressways and everything. And for example, the people who are living in slums and what squatters, for the benefit of our conversation, let's say the squatter or slum people are not getting upgraded. They are just living the same life as they used to live. Whereas the current projects are going on, and one thing I can say that when the projects will be completed, definitely these projects will impact the life of the people. Because, for example, in MRT lines, we will get 16 to, if we just complete one line, we will get almost 16 to 16 stations in Dhaka city for one line. So then what we can see that near the stations, or many economic activities will generate, right? And as people will get off from the train to reach their destination, either they will have to take the rickshaw or any type of local transport to reach there. So, and lots of economic possibilities will be generated near each station, and that may influence those slum or squatter people to, migrate from their own residence to locate somewhere near to the stations. And at that time, we will see another change in the urban fabric, because either we'll see different types of, informal settlements near the stations, or maybe even we can see few types of, residential projects or privately owned spaces. Like in our country, is very popular. People give rents, construct few houses and give rent to the people. So we will see this kind of slum type of settlement again in near to the station. So people will get benefited definitely from these types of projects, but in terms of urban upgrading or slum upgradation project, that is a different project in this sense, because we only have 4,000 slums, and these slums are operated by the local, influencing people. They operate these people, and mostly government do not, have conversations with these influential people about the lifestyle of the local people. But if we really want to have a better life in this city, and if we want to upgrade the lifestyle of this 45% of people, government must intervene into those slums, and they must create a conversation between the slum dwellers and the influential parties who are controlling those slums and the government. They must sit together and they try to identify what kind of facilities right now the slum people have inside of their house, and what can be done, what facilities can they be given, and what kind of health or what kind of educational assistance can be provided to these people, so that they can at least get a better life, and so that they do not migrate from this place to another place. They stay in.
Okay, so I am Maliha Haq, and I have completed my graduation in Department of Geography and Environment from Dhaka University, and I am currently doing my post-graduation in Human Geography. So if I want to talk about my expertise or my interest, it is basically human geography. So you will understand what is geography or human geography if I give you a little idea about it. So basically geography talks about organization of phenomenon in a spatial context, or the human environment relationship in the context of space. So in city design, how can a geographer help? Because we talk about spatial organization, how things should be, how things are organized over space, and how it can be organized in the ideal form. So it's the intention of people to achieve the ideal thing. we always want to get into that ideal part, but the reality is not ideal. So geographers are involved in making things ideal. So how the things can be organized in such a way that we can get maximum benefit from it. So in a special context, and we talk about also human and environment. All like what comes first is about metro rail. Metro rail is people are saying that yes, it is development, and I also think that yes, it is development, because first of all, I need to say what is development. I think development is a change. It's a positive change, and when and as people are saying, as government is saying that metro rail will increase the connectivity and it will reduce the traffic jam of Dhaka city. So I think in that case it is development. And yes, I think and they're not recent, but yes, some projects happened in Dhaka city, like slum resettlement projects. There are some resettlement projects, though they are not very recent, but yes, I think it is development. No, I think change, it should be positive change, and development. Let me explain why I'm saying that metro rail is a development, because first of all, development is a positive change, and it should be all encompassing, and it means that it should not be something which focuses on one part. I mean, it should consider economic aspect, social aspect, cultural aspect, environmental aspect. If we combine all the things, and we can say that yes, everything is upgrading, then we can say it is development. But in metro rail, yes, especially in our country, in recent years, we put lot of emphasis on resettlement. And compensation of people which land has been acquired by the government. So in that case, from social, and I have seen some documents of metro rail, like metro rail projects, probably their SIA, or social impact assessment. They also considered how many street vendors will be displaced due to this project. They also considered it. Street vendors, they are mobile, right? But they also considered that street vendors, and they also considered how many trees will be cut down. So they also considered that environmental aspect. I don't know how they will compensate that, the loss of the trees, but yes, they are trying to they're trying to develop the economy, and they are also putting emphasis on people. But and also, like I said, that I have seen that how many trees will be cut down. They're also taking into account. So it is, but I don't think it is fully a development, because of the one issue that is cultural part. That you already know that a part of TSC is being broken down because of metro rail. So it is a cultural heritage of our country. And when we talk about development, it's not only about achieving great economy. It's also about holding our culture, holding the places which carry our heritage. Right. So TSC is something like that, but they are just demolishing it because of this metro rail. If I talk about Shishu Park in our country, it was Shishu Park. So Shishu Park, Children Park, that is, it has great historical importance. But later on, it was race course, where great speech was given. So it has some historical aspects, but later on it was converted into a park. And most of the people of our country, like our generation, even don't know about it, that it actually has that much of historical importance, like children park. So I think, so when TSC will be demolished, like people of future generation, the young generation will not know about it. So I think this is very important, like considering all aspects and people like right. So as when I talk about development, I say that development is all encompassing. And when we talk about sustainable development goals, we have sustainable development goals, 17 goals. So it is also based on 3 pillars, right? Social, economic, and environmental. So we need to consider all the things. And our government is still thinking, I think they are still thinking top down method. Like they will just make policies and they will implement it. They do not think how people are thinking. So if they thought, the result or the policies could have been different. So yes, so it is for the people. It is, and not only for the people, for the environment. A forest has right to survive, right? I think yes, they are. If I talk about metro, yes, they are talking about connectivity, and it will definitely connect. But if I think about the projection, with how it will, so I always believe that it will increase the spatial, like I said before, that geography deals with spatial things, right? So
Abstract is special.
Yes, special. So when we talk about inequality, geographers are mostly concerned about spatial inequality, right? So if we we are in one sense, we are like government or academics, they're talking about decentralization now, right? They're talking about decentralization, but what they're doing is they're making Dhaka more accessible. They are not taking any step to decentralize our facilities. I say that yes, inclusiveness means already the 3 pillars. We need to consider social aspect, economic aspect, and environmental aspects too. And I think we should also consider social aspect, cultural aspects too. Like we are doing development, but we are just demolishing our cultural heritage. It shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
And empathy means something like thinking from others' perspective, not my perspective. So everything should be, the policy should be made bottom up. We need to, like I was still there, like, because it is the perception of our I think it is because we are living in a city where we do not have much connections with each other. I think that because in a metropolitan city, and like I even do not know all the people of my building. So how? But if you go to a village, like people from 3 kilometers away from your house will know you. So in a like so when if it is in consideration of a village, people are more like a community. It works more like a community. They think like a community. I think that. But in a city where people from different places have come and they're living and they have no connections with each other, it is very impossible to make people empathetic to each other, I think. So because everyone will think about their own. It's all about our culture, about our perception.
Thing on that.
I can restart that. So as I was saying, I'm Inam. I'm working for Oxfam in Bangladesh as the interim country director. I'm a development practitioner who's trained in sociology, and I live in Dhaka for the last decade and more than that. And I was actually born in Dhaka, but I left the city for my childhood and my earlier stages of education. Then I came back again. And you also asked about my work. So as a development practitioner, I'm engaged in a range of activities which are related with the rights of the marginalized people, both in urban and rural areas, locally and globally. I have a lot of focus on climate change resilience. And I know you have an interest in urban space, especially Dhaka. So when it comes to link to my work in Dhaka, it mostly is linked with urban poor, as my organization focuses on eradicating poverty. So some of the groups that we work with includes domestic workers who provide work support at households, and also home-based workers, so which are among the poorest in the city. And also they are a group who migrate to the Dhaka city for economic reasons.
Okay.
So this is perhaps an area where a sociologist and a geographer can have a discussion. So if you go to Google Earth, we all get to have that bird's eye view of the city now, which didn't exist before. So the biggest change that you will see are the big concrete piles over the city across, like the mega projects like the railway, the metro rail, or the big infrastructures like the connectivity between Ghazipur, Dhaka, and other areas through concrete, basically. So many pillars, they are not yet complete. So I cannot say that these are new highways. I cannot say that these are roads that people are going to use. Essentially, what we are seeing is pillars here and there. And if you look at the life, how it impacts life. So what will happen if these are complete? When these are complete, people who can afford to use those means of transportation, those roads, they will have some benefit. But how about people who are not going to use it? What will change for them? So if you go to, you will see only cars above the flyover, and these are tolled flyovers, which means people who can pay to use that are actually going to use that. And you will see many of the vehicles are making the choice not to use it. So the roads below are getting congested. So we were talking about the traffic problem and all. So it's still a choice, right? Even if you give them that expensive flyover, people can choose not to use it. Because you're making them pay. So there is a free way which they would like to use. And if you look at some of the other users, like for instance, people who settled down in the spaces below, because this is not usable anymore. People are trying to make their homes there, this is also being taken over by
everything.
Business, not just business activities. Like in Dhaka, it's very diverse. You have vested interests. So someone will go there, because I was talking about power sharing. So someone who has the power to take over that space below the flyover, they will take over and they will allow someone else to use it in return of some money. So you're not really, like, even if you're living there as a poor person, you still are having to pay someone. Nothing is free. See, but around that, like there was this news that I was looking at, someone who made a stock of chicken below the Hanif flyover, which means like if you're stocking chicken, someone is buying it. So there is business and life happening around it. Perhaps the life above the flyover is much less colorful than the one below. So I'm actually interested to see what will happen in these big ones. But the problem is when we are not inclusive in our designs, like there was definitely ways, like people who are designing these flyovers and these mega projects, they definitely did not have the life which will happen around this in mind. They had that, okay, we have to connect two dots over in this city, and there will be commuting, there will be this number of passengers, there will be these fares, there will be finances coming in, we have to repay them. These calculations were there, but how life will evolve around that, I don't think that was part of the plan, which is why they never consult the citizenry. Like, we are not consulted when these are designed. What we actually need there, is it just those stations or just those vehicles or something more than that? And but the main issue for me is the designing of the changes need to happen in a participatory manner and with people, including people who are actually going to have a life with these changes, rather than people who are making those decisions on the table and keeping in mind only a small group of citizens who are not going to share this space, this city with others, who are not ready to do that. So the current inclusion in the decision-making space is only with a small group of people in Dhaka. This needs to change, really, if we really want to have a thriving city. Climate change, it's happening. If you are a climate denier, so you're not going to believe that this is going to happen. Even if you are not a denier, but if you're not ready to make the investments to stop that radical and gruesome change, you are essentially asking people to adapt to it. Yes. You don't care what happens. Whoever is impacted, you are putting that burden of adaptation on their shoulders. Yes. It's the same with Dhaka city. If you are making changes without realizing the impact it is going to have on people's lives over the years, which means you are actually forcing people to adapt to it. So if I am very resilient, I have managed a way out of this situation, I have rebuilt my life around it, it doesn't mean it was a fair process. I had to perhaps pay a lot of prices which was never paid back. So someone perhaps did not have to make those pay those costs. They just got it like given to them. Like you make instance, if you remember the early days of shutdown, like when because of COVID the city had to shut down, there were so many restrictions. How many people actually had to leave the city?
And a lot of people. This
city was not prepared for it, which means if we keep investing in a way to make changes in this city, which will only be focused on some citizens, not everyone, which means this city will not be viable for many of the citizens and they will have to leave. So eventually, like you might say, it's a good thing, the population will decline, people who cannot afford should leave, but it's not a fair process. And if we look at these investments, the sources of these investments, the entire country is paying for it. When a sovereign state takes a loan and invests in a project in Dhaka, that money is paid by the entire nation. It's not just those 300,000 people. And even if they did, that was an investment made on behalf of all these people in the hundreds of millions of people. So
thank you, Sadia. As you just mentioned that I work in the field of economics, and so my name is Tanvir Mahmood, and I've been working as a research associate in Bangladesh Institute of Development Studies for the last 3 years. And I actually work on two broad areas. One is skill and education, and another is poverty and inequality. And one of my prime focus is actually observing how people interact with technology and how they acquire skill and how they implement their skill in their work and other areas of their life. And besides that, I definitely focus on the well-being of the people. As I just told that one of my prime research interest is poverty and inequality. So, I have completed my undergraduate and graduate from University of Dhaka, and my major was economics. And before that, I just completed my higher secondary from Northern College, and before that, my school was St. Joseph Higher Secondary School. That's it.
Okay.
So one kind of development that I've been witnessing, that is a development of a new cultural class and a development of a new cultural middle class. So what I'm trying to say is that we historically have economic middle class. I think most of us who reside in Dhaka city are either who actually are living in the, at least in the apartments and the houses, they belong to the economic middle class. So one recent development I've been witnessing is a development of a cultural middle class. The middle class that is not only concerned about the economic aspect of their life, but also the cultural aspects of their life, like they're more into literature, they're more into music, they're more into development of, they're more into the movies and other cultural aspects of that. So that is something I'm really, I think that is a recent development, and it's a growing, there is a growing trend in Dhaka. If you see that more and more people are interested in the cultural events that have been taking place in the city. So I think I'm just gonna clear one thing, that I think when you're dealing with metropolitans, when you're comparing Dhaka with the rest of the metropolitans, Dhaka is definitely an anomaly. That's something I'm gonna say, because I always call it the refugee city. Why I'm calling it the refugee? If you ask randomly any person that where are you from, nobody is gonna say that I'm from Dhaka, even if they have been living there for the most of their lives. If you ask me that where I am from, I'll say that I'm from Kumilla, but I have never lived there. I never lived there, but I will always say that I'm from Kumilla. And anyone you ask, and that is more visible in the terms of when it comes to any religious festivities. When you any long vacations, most of the people are of Dhaka are gone. Only 40% or 30% are left in the Dhaka city. So one thing is that nobody feels entitled to be in this city. That is one thing that I'm gonna clear. That nobody is gonna say that this is my city. So I think there is a vacuum, because everyone kind of come, and there is a trend of people coming here, reaping this place, they're profiting of this place. They're kind of making money from this place, and they're gonna they have a tendency to leave, or they live somewhere else mentally. So what happens is, when there is an emergence of a cultural middle class, then what happens is they feel more entitled to the city. They feel more closely to the city. They think that, okay, fine, this is such a city where I can create some art. This is such a city where I can create some memories. So I think historically Dhaka was like that, but after the partition, and specifically after the liberation, there was a trend in mass migration of the elite class. If you just track the elite class of the 1960s, 70s, most of them have migrated in other countries like USA, Canada, or UK, or Australia. So what happened is that we don't have those people who were deeply involved in culture in the 60s, 70s, 80s. So and the vacuum was created. And we kind of fill that vacuum, that with the new economic middle class. And the second generation of the new economic middle class of the 1980s and 90s and early 2000s they have kind of became the new cultural middle class. So another thing that I'm very optimistic about is that this new cultural middle class is very young, so they have a lot to contribute to the development of the city. And the contribution is not like infrastructural development. The contribution is in terms of cultural contribution and the contribution towards the sustainability of the city. Okay. So to start with, definitely the lower class, lower class or lower economic class of the group. The group that is the lower middle class is of my concern, because I don't think that the upper class is not capable of becoming the cultural class they want to be. So one thing that I want to mention, and I think you will agree with me as well, that the upper class of our country, that the economic upper class of our country, they are not into culture. That is one thing. So they are the pure profiteering entities. They kind of, and they have a tendency. Then another thing is that they are cosmopolitan when it comes to when it comes to profiting, or that when it comes to capital, when their capital is more mobile than their culture. That's one thing.
Yes,
So
okay.
I'm not going to talk about them right now because they have the capacity to access all those things, but they don't. So they are not conscient enough. That's one thing. And when it comes to lower class, I think a counter-cultural revolution is also happening there. That let me be very clear. One thing that we always forget when you're dealing with lower class individuals and lower economic class, I'm mentioning, that they don't have any culture. That's just extreme. It's very easy to kind of ignore their culture. That's first thing. So, and I think there is also a cultural revolution happening in their space as well, but that is quite different than what the economic middle class is doing. So let me give you an example that an individual who is an economic middle class or cultural middle class, that I'm just trying to say, and basic, he will probably think of the sustainability of the city, but not a lower person who belongs to a lower class, because they are so confined in their thoughts. Because you have to understand one thing, that there is a misconception that the lower class, there is a correlation between working hours and income. Actually, the lower class doesn't get enough time to enough leisure so that they can practice culture. That is very true, because they have to work from. And then I think definitely there is a possibility that they will turn out to be like the upper class of the society. And there is a low possibility of that, because the problem of the upper class is that they have a culture of making money, and they have a culture of and I want to clarify one thing, that we have a second generation middle class here, but we have too few second generation upper class in the society. That's one thing. Most of the upper class people have a tendency to send their kids outside of the country.
Yes, yeah.
So we have very few second generation or third generation upper class. So the idea is very basic, that you create enough capital, you create enough money so that the second generation feels that they have enough money and capital. They don't so they don't have to deal with the fundamental human needs. Then they will go to the upper level of the upper level of humanity, that we say that culture or other stuff like. So it is going to happen with the upper class as well, but it's primarily happening with the middle class, because we have a growing middle class. Our research actually also show that we are still our middle class is still growing, which is a bit okay.
No.
I didn't actually touch on that. There is a growing trend of people who are actually more environmentally aware. They are becoming vegan. They're kind of like living a minimal lifestyle. So that's something. Just continue. I'm just trying to add on that.
Yes.
The point.
Thank you, Sadia. So I'm also Sadia Sharmin. I'm from Dhaka, Bangladesh. I'm an architect and researcher, and I also teach. And currently, I'm working as a lecturer at the Department of Architecture at Milton Institute of Science and Technology. My research work focuses on informal settlements of Dhaka city. Since I have been working since last 5 years on Korail Busti, which is the largest informal settlement of Dhaka, and I'm interested about working on community engaged projects. So I try to figure out how to work with community and how to work collectively, and so this is my focus on community, and it's not only focused on urban areas. I've been working also recently in rural areas. So the focus is on community engagement, and both in urban and rural contexts. Thank you. Well, as this conversation we have started, and these questions come to the next stage, and I think I can reflect like this so-called development terminology, this idea of development. We can question that as it's time to question that. I think so. It's to critically analyze what we are calling development. Many things is happening in the city, like other parts of the world, but if it's called development, because when we are trying to analyze anything like sustainable development, it's about it incorporates how inclusive it is, how and when I see many things that are happening in Dhaka that are in the name of development couldn't work, because it is only focused on one group of a community or people, and it's completely disregarding another group of people, and who are also legitimate citizens of the city. And when development or any action, you can say, when any action is not only one directional, thinking about only one group and doing that favor to one group, you are taking the rights of other group, then I think it cannot be called development. Or we can discuss, like, is it development? Because for example, Sustainable Development Goal number 11, when we try to study about like sustainable communities and cities, it's the first thing is affordable and safe housing for every citizen of the city. And in Dhaka, it's not happening. It's we don't see in the planning or development perspective what is how city is trying to accommodate that and to reach that goal. To make it happen. And for example, because we say we are talking about Korail. In the Korail land, there is a proposal of an IT park development in the city center. And of course, yes, from the economic perspective, you can say it's a development planning proposal, how a city can work. And you can question that, like, is it an IT park in the center of this city in the Korail location, and this you are removing all these 120,000 people, where you are locating them, and so this is a, I think, continuous argument can go on how city or the city authority or we collectively are saying what actions we are identifying as development and what are not. These resettlement approaches are discussed or in the scenario, we see that they are on the fringe areas of Dhaka, or like Gajipur or Savar areas. But the transportation route, then you can also say that it's how they will come to work, because they are working in Dhaka. And so this is a very complicated system, way to solve. I don't know who can solve it. And this is definitely not one person or one department or ministry to solve. I think when we plan, also the miscommunication or between different authorities, or in the planning perspective, you can say the collectively working means not only as in the community, what we see in Korail, also in bigger perspective. I think we require that to collectively plan something and negotiate. Of course, I know the collective work is also very much it's difficult. It's difficult to communicate, difficult to balance between what has to be done, but the negotiation has to be there. And whenever one department is planning something, another department is planning something, and there's no communication, nothing, and nobody is thinking about, okay, what will happen to these people. So these are things. This is kind of, you can say, not only in Dhaka, in many cities of the world, this is happening. In the congested
densified city.
Yes.
Densified cities mostly.
It has to be really planned properly. And when we talk about, for example, the rural areas, decentralization means giving, also rethinking the rural settlement patterns and the job opportunities. But that doesn't mean you make the villages as terrible as the cities now that we have. So the development plan, so it has to be very much contextual, based on contextual analysis or lifestyle of people. Otherwise, it will also create chaos that has been done in many cities. So the decentralization approach should be very sensitive to the context. When we are designing in, I know about like compact township. There's one idea that has been in Bangladesh context in the discussion, and like proposing housing for rural people.
Yeah.
And I saw from my undergraduate thesis was based on compact township. And while doing that project, I came to know about the proposals, the design proposal, the physical proposals from the implementing authority. It's very shocking. You see, when you see the feasibility report, it's clear that you need to rethink the development or housing conditions, because to save agricultural land and also to create enough job opportunities in rural areas. But when you are physically implementing in design, what you are creating factory-like buildings and not considering the life, cultural and living standard and style of the farmers or the people who are living there, and trying to implement something that has been done in cities and that has been failed in different contexts, and you are trying to copy paste that physical infrastructure there, then you cannot say that if you can solve anything with decentralization. So it has to be very sympathetic, empathetic to when we design or plan anything new. But of course, decentralization, it's time. It has to be there. We cannot focus on everything on Dhaka. It's already saturated too much.
Well, the way our city is and how the development projects are going on, the kind of city we are going to have after 10 to 20 years later, I don't think that that city will teach us to be empathetic, because empathy, build a city to teach empathy to the residents. It's a huge thing. Kind of, for example, most of the projects are, as we already have discussed, that it excludes lots of people. Like, if I take my grandfather or grandparents to the streets, I think they will not be able to cross the streets alone. And that is also true for our children. I mean, my children will not be able to use the city elements alone. And this city is almost not safe for the elderly people, as well as not for the children, and to many extent for the women as well. So this city is highly exclusive, and it's not including lots of people. And when you avoid that term inclusiveness, when you avoid that, you also lose the empathy, uh, the term empathy, because empathy and inclusiveness goes hand in hand, I must say. Because when you are including lots of people, that sense also comes from your sense of empathy. You are trying to include everyone, you are trying to help everyone. Probably you are trying to create a space where people from all strata are coming together, talk together, socialize each other. And when you give a space for the people to socialize with each other, somehow the empathy will also generate. So these are the places act as a source of being empathetic. These places actually teach people how to feel empathetic for each other. So as we are not, investing our monies on developing these spaces, developing these interaction spaces or social spaces, so definitely we are not giving our residents a chance to be empathetic in future. So yeah, to answer your question, I would say no, it's not going to be like that.
Okay.
Yes, it is. First of all, there is a problem that we in Dhaka city, we do not have that much of open space, or the social space, we say. We do not have that much of social space, and whatever we have, government is taking that away from us. So it will definitely impact on it. But there is this is called DAP, detailed area planning of Dhaka city, and it told about in every sub-region of DAP, their government has planned that there should be kind of an open space there, or recreational center there. Government has planned there in every sub-region. There is one or two, or they have also estimated the amount of open space it should have, the numbers of recreational centers it should have. And if that is implemented, I think connections between people will be established. But it's very unfortunate that in our country we cannot implement what is written in our policies, what is written in our plans. We cannot implement that. But if it is implemented, yes, it will be a good place for interacting between people. And even people like parents are concerned. Like many studies have been carried out that the children do not have place to play. We do not have playgrounds. So it is also a problem, because it is making the children unsocialized. Playground is somewhere children can socialize between them, right? So when they will grow up, how can you imagine that they will have empathy towards each other? They won't have them. So
That's
because it's like the virtual reality is a thing now, and people who are talking about it, there is scope to really give a space for people to bring their vision of this city together and really show it to other citizens, and that can actually trigger changes, like things that people can do also. And even for the infrastructural process, I think there is a strength in engaging the citizens. We have to change our definition of city. The city is not a sum of roads, infrastructures, and buildings. A city should be considered as a sum of people who live within it. Unless we start thinking around those lines, it's not going to be possible for us to have a really inclusive and empathetic city. Like, we have to acknowledge that the people are living in it, and they are the city. That's the first thing. And if the citizens are, which they are not, actually looking up to some powerful entity to do it for themselves, it's not going to happen. The people in the city, they really need to come together. And I'm not talking about political processes. It's about really being united, really having a shared vision and having a negotiating capital with whoever is making those changes, so that they can get the message and also see the value addition that the collective citizenry can bring in. So it's not like the power of people, as we say, like how that can actually make things different and better at this city. If when people who are not really ready to share the power or space, they see it that without these people, this city is not going to be a city. Then I think things will start to be more inclusive. But we need a catalyst here. Like it's not going to happen anyway. Like without anyone doing anything about it.
Okay.
And I think this is one of the these are the I think without these two features you cannot develop a city. I don't think so, because ultimately these are the what I'm gonna say, that the spirit of a city. And a city without people, without the people being together, I don't think that is there's a proper city. So I want to quote Zia Haidar Rahman. Zia Haidar Rahman is a novelist. So what he told is that in terms of thoughts, in terms of creating thoughts, in terms of creating ideas, Dhaka is a dead city. And I think I kind of agree with him, because Dhaka doesn't create much thinkers. And one of the core reasons that why Dhaka don't create much thinkers or creative people is because of the fact that, as I mentioned before, that it is a people for the refugees. It's a city for the refugees, and it's a city for those who want to explore the place. They don't want to stay here. People don't call, and I think that I want to make the the analogy, right? That there's a difference between house and a home. Yeah. So I think Dhaka is house to the people, not home to the people, and home is something that is very abstract. You can live in a house with a lot of people, but it might not be a home. And many of the people I know didn't grow up in a home, and it's very it always reflects on their behavior. So I think we need to make Dhaka a home where people are inclusive. They are empathetic towards each other. They are kind. They think in an accumulated manner. They don't think they are not isolated from each other. And what I see in Dhaka is that people tend to be isolated from each other, and we experienced it a lot, because one thing that I can remember is that somebody from the next door died, and we didn't realize up until the next morning, because we just thought the kids were crying. It was a day. We didn't know that their father had died previous evening. So what I'm trying to say is that we don't communicate from each other, even if we live so close to each other. And it's so true for Dhaka, because every building is so close to each other, but we don't have that kind of communication. We don't have that kind of harmony. So definitely it's highly needed. Every city should be designed in such a way that people meet each other. They work together. They kind of create things together. We didn't evolve to earn a lot of money and kind of keep ourselves alive. I don't think so. We are more than this. So we need to interact with each other.
Yeah.
When I look at Dhaka, I don't think that it's going to happen in near future. It's not going to happen, because and I think more isolation will be there. And because one thing that I have to say, that as a person who are keen into development literature, what I have seen that we always see that when a city or a country is economically developing, the first thing that happens is they kind of contract the diseases of development. I'm trying to say is that they contract the bad side of the developed nation, and then eventually they get into the good aspects of it. So what's going to happen is that we are going to see some what you just told me, that isolation, the independent people being independent of each other, people being more isolated from each other. That's going to happen to Dhaka city, and eventually people will realize, okay, fine, now we are kind of developed enough to be inclusive. So I think there is a huge global experiment is happening. That's one thing, because we are we are interacting more than ever.
Yeah.
So I think we are kind of in between an experiment. We get to witness that. And I can communicate it with anyone living on the other end of the planet. So that's something. So, but one thing we have to understand that one thing is cultural development and technological development. Another thing is as a human society, we are our development. So that is a bit slow. That is a bit slower than the other
development,
right? So we have to take a deep breath and think about that we need to absorb all these shocks and sustain. So
empathy or inclusiveness, when the citizens, I think in the decision making process, if it's possible to increase that as much as possible from the local governments to the central governments, and it can start from very to the core cluster, from the ward level, and then the union level, I don't know, then city corporation, everything. This I relate not only to the people who are underprivileged, or like we are so-called slum dwellers, but also people who are living in formal communities, residential communities. So I guess already existing relationships are working at some scale. For example, because there are NGOs and they need these CBOs, and these community-based organizations are also created by NGOs, because when you see the NGO system, NGO cannot work in the community like going door to door. Yeah. So they needed an organization, they needed a representative to work there. So they formed a group, or facilitated or empowered a group, like to lead the conversation or represent the community issues. So CBOs come from there. And when we see how NGO and CBO work, this is one system, but it can be more, you can say, more structured and formal in a way that is not only dependent on NGO, the CBO community, you can directly, its validity, that's the validity of this organization has to be acknowledged in the formal system. So that we have a strong connection, a trade-like connection. The core is community-based organization, and then the work commission, and then if you develop a organogram, at the core, maybe this community-based organization can be addressed. And already there are, I know, for example, from Parail or other informal settlements, community-based organizations are there, and they are working with city corporations or advocacy platforms or NGOs collectively, and it's interdependent. NGOs or advocacy platforms also need them. Without them, they cannot function in the community. They need them. So, but the voice of the community-based organizations has to reach to
government organization.
Yes, as you mentioned, the policymakers also in some press conference or something, you see some representative, but they are silent, or these are only present that we are in participatory action, but sometimes you don't have their opinions end of the day. Of course, I like to be optimistic in this, like about the future of. We have many challenges, and but there's a very much critical reflections have been coming also in the scenario. So if we can address those things in the planning process and action, then I am optimistic about a better future and empathetic future, and because I'm very much optimistic also about the young generation, our generation, also the next generation, who are you can see who are working with the community and increasing. This is the trend of addressing the issue like that, the participation of community and the power and strength of their knowledge, their contribution. So the professionals are now recognizing this.